Welcome to the Fire Sprinkler Podcast with Chris and Logan.
This episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is brought to you by the Reliable Automatic Sprinkler Company, celebrating its 100th anniversary. Reliable is the source for all your fire protection needs and manufactures the highest quality and most innovative fire sprinklers, valves, and special systems on the market. Reliable distributes a full line of best-in-class system components and backs it up with premier customer service throughout their 18 North America sales and distribution centers. Find a distributor near you by visiting the new reliablesprinkler.com. Reliable would like to take this opportunity to thank their contractor customers and all who have helped them save lives and protect property for the last century and into the future. Hey everyone, before we kick off this episode of the podcast, I just wanted to say a few things about the COVID-19 pandemic that's happening right now. It's obviously a major issue going on in the world today, and I realize a lot of people are going to be out of work for an extended period of time because of it. If anyone is interested in coming on the podcast and talking about the industry, reach out to me at chris@firesprinklerpodcast.com. I'm going to make every attempt to put content out over the next few weeks to provide something for the out of work or working guys and gals out there to listen to. Just keep them involved with the industry. Video portion of the podcast is coming very soon. I'm still dialing in the studio settings and setting up a few more reviews so that I can put more than just a single video of content out for the initial launch. Thanks everybody for the support. As usual, follow the podcast on all forms of social media. #FireSprinklerPodcast, and for damn sakes, wash your hands. This episode is with Carey and John from Reliable. There's a new Reliable dry valve available. A lot of good information about the product. I hope you enjoy this one.
Like and subscribe.
Today's episode, Carey Weber, John Kokorian with Reliable Sprinkler. Guys, how are you today?
Fabulous, Chris. How you doing?
It's still too early to tell. The wife's actually on her way to pick up the kids right now, so we'll find out after that. You guys know how it is.
Chris, sure do, Chris. Hey, thanks so much for having us on today.
Yeah, no problem. It's kind of a big year for Reliable, so we can kind of start just a little bit with who both of you guys are and what you guys do with Reliable. So, John, I've known you for a number of years. You're with Reliable. Why don't you tell me what you do with Reliable?
So I've been with Reliable for about 8 months now. My position here is digital marketing manager. So, it's a very specific title, but I found soon after I got here that I'm part of a really tight team of marketing professionals here. So I'm certainly involved with digital marketing, but I get involved in a lot more aspects of marketing.
Right, and so it's more than just playing on Facebook all day, correct?
Yep, sure is.
Carey Weber. Carey, you've been on the podcast before. We talked about the Sure-Off tester, I think it was last fall.
Correct.
Why do you anything new with you? What are you doing with Reliable these days?
Well, so my title is Director of Technical Services. That's a position I've held for about 3 years now, and prior to that, I was a Technical Service Manager. We have a group of about 8 or 9 guys around the country, and our job is essentially to educate the industry on our product, and we kind of act as translators between our engineering department, our sales department, and the field crews, the users of our product. And most of us come from a contracting background.
Okay, so prior to you working for Reliable, what were you involved with? Were you involved in the sprinkler industry on a contractor side of things?
Yeah, so it's all I've ever done, Chris. I got out of, I'm going to date myself, but I got out of college, a 2-year program in 1978, happened into the fire protection industry and have not left. And I like to tell people the fire protection industry is kind of like the Hotel California. You can check in, but you can never check out.
That's, I don't think truer words have ever been said. I'm a 3rd-generation sprinkler fitter. I tried for probably 3 months right out of high school to try to do something else, and I got roped back in. Thankfully, I got roped back into the family business that I'm still with now, and it's awesome. I got 2 boys at home, 6 and 7 years old, and they don't know it yet, but they're sprinkler fitters. They just haven't reached the age yet. They didn't get to play with Lego when they were a kid. They were sorting fittings at the shop and putting couplings together.
Nice.
So you guys wanted to come on today and talk about a new dry valve that Reliable's coming out with, the Reliable Model FX. Which of the existing dry valves that you guys have out right now is this valve going to be replacing, and what's the reason for coming out with it?
Well, so, I mentioned I came in the industry in 1978, and at that time, and for the 40 years since then, my whole career has been built around reliable products. And when I came into the industry in 1978, we were designing and installing the Model D dry pipe valve, and that valve had been around for a number of years prior to that. It's still being manufactured and sold today. It's a great valve, but over time, as technology improves and materials improve, the valves become just a little bit antiquated in terms of weight and so forth. So we've got the new Model FX valve is designed to replace the Model D, not right away. Over time, we got inventory depletion and people who still have orders out for that valve. And we will have parts for that valve for many, many years to come. So nobody in the industry needs to fret about that. So, right. That Model D valve being around so long, there's literally tens of thousands of them out in the field. But again, the Model FX being the new valve, lighter material, external reset, which is a time saver in the field. Again, lighter ductile iron weight, really, really compact trim. No priming water, which again, that's priming water goes back a long, long way in the industry. Mm-hmm. That priming water, is supposed to be checked every quarter, which adds to the maintenance issue of that style of valve. Plus, it's also the third necessary component for a lot of corrosion in dry pipe systems. So, getting rid of that priming water is going to be a benefit in terms of longevity as well. So, those are the primary features of the valve. It's a straight differential valve, so it's not low pressure. We're going to continue to have a low pressure valve in the DDX LP, LP being the low pressure. But this is essentially a straight, call it a 6-to-1 differential valve. The setup will be very, very similar to that of the Model D, with the exception of, again, that priming water and the need to pull that faceplate off to do a reset. NFPA 25 is going to still require that faceplate to come off on an annual basis, interior of the valve inspected and cleaned. So that doesn't change much. But again, just a new improved model to help get us into the 21st century here.
Coming up with the times here. I got a couple things. Everybody is going to the external reset, and I've got a love-hate relationship with the external reset. I find a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but I find people just hitting that external reset without actually taking the faceplate off. So I'm happy you said, and you were very clear with the requirement to still actually take the faceplate off and do an internal inspection and clean the inside of the dry pipe valve, regardless if it has the external reset or not. It's very important for the preventative maintenance of the system to make sure you get in there and clean all the stuff out and just make sure that all the components and everything are in good shape. Part of the preventative maintenance of any sprinkler system is making sure that it's going to work. And how do you know it's going to work if you don't have a look at it?
Correct. And one of the things that you'll notice, folks will notice when they see our valve is the external reset is what we call protected. In other words, you're not just going to reach out and push a lever or push a button or something like that. It's recessed into a housing. It doesn't require a special tool, but it does require you to kind of know what you're doing. When you don't protect that reset, the potential exists for the valve clapper to actually be dropped before the system is drained. And when you do that, you've essentially trapped all of that water in that piping above the clapper of that valve. So, you can drain it out of the condensate drain if you want to wait a week. You can pull the faceplate off and have Niagara Falls in your riser room. Some guys will say, "Hey, we'll figure out a way to retrip the valve even though it's wet and get that clapper open. But again, the intention there very obvious, as it is with our DDX valve as well. It's kind of like you should know what you're doing before you mess around with that reset. But yeah, good point on the cleaning though. Currently, NFPA 25 doesn't give you a break on that 1 year. It's kind of interesting on deluge and pre-action valves that have external reset. They extend that time period to 5 years. It always kind of confuses me a little bit. I mean, the valves aren't that different, so I'm not sure what the thinking of the committee was at the time. But hey, and just a plug there for everybody that's listening, NFPA 25 is open for public input right now until June 30th. So if you're in the ITM side of things and you don't like something, now's the time to try and get it changed.
Okay, so what would be, if anybody, we're going to go off topic away from the FX, but I do have a couple notes that I want to touch on with the external reset still. I'm not done beating that thing up yet, because I do think there is one good thing from a service side about it. If somebody wants to submit something to the NFPA tech committee about the changes, how do they go about doing that?
So get on the NFPA website. I'm not an NFPA guy. I'm a member, and we'd certainly participate. It's called public input. I don't know if you have to set up an account or actually be an NFPA member. I can't answer that part of it. But if you get onto the website, get to the free access area of the standards, look for what they call the next edition, and as you kind of drill your way down in there, you'll see where you can make a public input to the standard.
Okay, so I just went on when I was doing it, nfpa.org. You'll see at the top there's a menu bar, codes and standards, a list of NFPA codes and standards. Find NFPA 25. Towards the middle of the page is the next edition you were talking about, and it's going to set up submit a public input. Submit a public input, and then it is going to ask you for a login. So if you're not a member of NFPA, you may run into some problems, but maybe it's just asking because I'm logged out of the website. Regardless, reach out to NFPA if you have any other questions about that. But that's a good thing to know, that if there is somebody out there that sees a problem with NFPA 25 and they want input, it's open to the public. It's a public input. Now back to the external reset. Love-hate relationship. I hate how easy it is for everybody to, externally reset the system without taking the faceplate off. But what I do like is when you get those service calls in the middle of the night and the maintenance guy, hits the button external reset when the system's flooded. Because at that point I'm going to need your Wi-Fi password and a really, really comfortable chair while I drain this through the condensate drain. And then that's the benefit of having that external reset with somebody who may not know what they're doing with the system, right?
Yeah, and the one thing I would say on this valve, and again on our kind of a convertible DDX valve, which we use for deluge and pre-action, those external devices essentially thread into the valve body. They are removable. We've had customers that say, hey, we really don't want, or we've had owners that say, we really don't want our guys to mess around with those things. Is there a way we can, quote unquote, defeat that external reset? And yeah, the answer is yes, it can be removed. I mean, and so if that's what you want to do, take it off and plug it out, and then you can love or hate however you want it, Chris.
And there's no issues with the listing if you remove the external reset of the valve. I know sometimes some of these valves, if you change a piece of the trim or something like that, your listing's gone. There's no issues with the listing when you take the external reset off.
Yeah, so think about it. It's not a piece of the valve that would impair the function of it.
Okay.
Right. So taking the reset off just means that when you have to do the reset, you're going to be pulling that faceplate and getting your hands up in there to get that clapper released. So, again, it's what, similar to like maybe a drain valve or something. It's a kind of non-critical part of the valve. So, the taking it off, it's just making more work for yourself, in my opinion. But again, I understand why folks might want to consider it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially like from a contractor side of view, if they have a contractor or they have a building owner that gets a little rambunctious with service sometimes.
Yeah. So and
Go
yep.
ahead.
Sorry, Chris. Real quick. Just a couple other features of the valve. I'm looking at it now and just reminding myself. The Model D valve was available. Basically flange groove. We now have multiple end configurations: groove, flange. I mean, whatever you need there in terms of that. The other thing that the engineers did is, while we weren't able to do a 100% closed drain, the tubes that essentially drain the intermediate chamber and the pressure switch, the alarm line, and so forth, they're all put into a very, very tight PVC fitting, which when you break pressure off those ball checks, it doesn't send a big splash of water all the way across the room. So that type of thing, just kind of keeping the riser rooms clean and dry was important in the design of the valve as well.
Yeah, especially if you get a valve where the essentially it goes into like a ball drip or a ball drain, not a ball drain, but like a collection port for that, and you go down to your 1 1/4 check valve. If you don't have enough water in there, it's going to splash everywhere to move the check valve. Valve rooms get messy really quick, and you guys are trying to improve the cleanliness of the valve rooms. That's another good thing, because people like clean rooms. They're paying a lot of money for sprinkler systems, and it's good. It's good to leave them in clean hands after the initial trip test. So
you got it.
There's no issues with the existing Model D dry valve. This is more of a new and improved things. So why don't you go through it? It's laid out somewhat different than the Model D. I see you guys are coming off the front with the gauge for the system side of the gauge for the system pressure. What other little changes are you guys doing to the dry valve, and what's the reason for them?
Well, it's it's kind of interesting the way this goes. I mean, you kind of start out with designing the casting of the valve, and those are long lead items, and so you try to put as much thought into the design of that as possible. And once those once the forms are made for the valve, you really don't want to change it. So you may see a port on there where you go, wow, what's that for? It may be an option that's not there. It may be a port that we thought we needed that we just simply decided it wasn't necessary any longer. And then we kind of turn the engineers loose. Oftentimes they'll start with kind of the way the Model D was trimmed. Once you get rid of the priming feature of the valve, a lot of that trim just kind of falls off there on the right side. The left side of the valve, pretty similar to the Model D, where the pressure switch and the air line comes in. We changed the drain valve up just a little bit. And then the valve you see on the low side, you're capturing the water pressure on the supply line coming in, and then it kind of just wraps across the underside of the faceplate. And it's got a ball valve right in front for your alarm test. Just kind of pipes right up and over into the pressure gauge or the pressure switch, and ties into the intermediate chamber, the alarm line coming off the intermediate chamber. So, it's just sometimes we'll get in here and we'll tweak the trim around a little bit and try to, build it as small as possible. That's the other the key that we always, the goal we put in front of the engineers is, every inch of space in that riser room is premier, and so we kind of try and keep that tight trim as compact and as tight as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. What was the the big changes? I see you guys are using more tubing as opposed to hard piping. What's the reason for that and the thought process behind using that?
Yeah, so flexibility is one, right? I mean, it's much easier to run that stuff. Again, it's not under pressure, so it doesn't need to really be a real high pressure type of line.
Right.
But this valve, and you'll see with a lot of the deluge and pre-action valves and low pressure valves, the ability to verify water running through those pipes really helps with the setup. And so the clear tube is just kind of like, well, if instead of a sight glass, for instance, we just make the whole drain line a sight glass. And again, it's relatively easy to kind of pull around the back side of valves or the front side, and it just saves cost, saves weight. is the other issue in the field. If all of that piping were half-inch galvanized fittings, you're going to add a little more weight to the valve. That weight translates to fitter abuse and shipping costs and all of that stuff. And every as you're a fitter, every joint you put in a piece of pipe is a potential leak. So we just you're going to see a lot more hoses. You're going to see a lot more probably braided pressurized lines for push rod chambers and things like that. It's just kind of the way the world's headed.
Yeah, it's I see both sides of it because I am a fitter, and now I'm more into a little bit more of management side of things and designing. So the fitter side of me says you're going to weaken the trade by using the tubing to lighten the weight, but then the fitter side of me is like, or the management side of things is I'm going to get more cost effective. The guys aren't going to have to wrestle with all this heavy stuff. So I see it both ways. But I think it's progression. You're going to have a lot of I think older fitters that are going to see it as weakening it and reducing the trade. But at the same time, I mean, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, right? There's no standing still in fire protection anymore. You've got to be evolving. You've got to, right?
You sure do. And, the other driver, not gonna make any bones about it, but, we need to keep the cost of these systems in line. And, if the standards are when I talk about the standards, I'm talking about the test standards for, UL and FM.
Right.
If they're going to allow this type of stuff, we're not certainly going to be in a competitive position if we're adding cost to our valve just because we like half-inch galvanized pipe versus a tube. So
right, yeah.
take all that stuff into consideration.
Yeah, I've said it 1,000 times. You're either going to evolve with the industry or the industry is going to evolve without you. If your competitor's using the better stuff or using the not cheaper stuff, but using the less expensive stuff that's easier on labor, et cetera, and you're not, nobody's going to use your stuff. Nobody's going to buy your stuff.
Sure. Yep, you got it.
What are the other key takeaways from this new valve? Typically, new equipment like replacing the kind of stakeholder dry valve from Reliable was probably not a light undertaking. Was it more just all around general upgrade, or was there something specific you guys were looking to accomplish here?
Well, wow. It's really the external reset and the no priming water issue. It's, in that regard, I would say, we've had a competitor out there who's had that, those features. And, while you may, again, love the Model D dry valve, unless you're the guy that has to pack it up the stairs. It really was just to get us kind of back in a competitive position with some of the other products that are out there. And so, the Model D, great valve, bulletproof valve, it's time, so, and, our engineers have to have jobs too. So,
so all around general improvement is what you're saying. That's good.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, there was actually consideration given at some point about just simply adding an external reset on the Model D. But again, then we're not making a lot of advancements there because of the weight and the priming water. So. We just kind of stepped back a couple years ago when the project started and said, hey, what do we want in this valve? What's the industry want in this valve? And then we just try and build it in and make it as user friendly as possible at the end of the day.
Is this valve available to the public now, or when's it being released?
The information's on the website, at least the new website, and John's on the he's in an office up and away from the building from me, but we got a new website that's going to be debuted shortly. I'll let him talk about that, but it's up on the new website. The information is the valve has been fully approved. We're building inventory quantities right now. And it's my understanding that the general release announcement will be next week sometime.
Okay, right on. John, do you want to speak on when the product's going to be released?
Sure. sure. Well, as Carey said, the new website's going to be live on Monday.
Okay.
Just go to reliablesprinkler.com and type in FX, and that'll take you right to the cut sheet. So we're ready to go.
Okay. So
Hey, and real quick, Chris, before I'm sorry to be so helter skelter. Hey, it's the way it is. It's Friday. It's late in the afternoon here in South Carolina.
yeah,
The one other thing that I didn't mention, this valve is available all the way down to 2-inch in size. The Model D was available in 4 and 6. We had an angle pattern 2.5-inch differential valve, but we really didn't cover all the bases. And the other, thinking again when the project started, and it's changed a little bit. The landscape's changed a little bit, but with the issues surrounding antifreeze, the thought at the time was that if a lot of these small antifreeze systems were going to be pulled out and needed to be replaced, that we now have got this valve down in the small as a 2-inch size for the industry out there.
yeah.
And pressure rating as well. Pressure rating's the other issue. See a lot of high pressure systems on high rises and places like that. The 2-inch valve is rated for 250 pounds, but all the other sizes are rated to 300 psi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at the data sheet right there and saw that 2-inch dry pipe valve. That's good. I think there's a couple others. The low pressure, the DDXLP is available in 2-inch as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Awesome. So that's another good feature for if you are going to be replacing some of these antifreeze systems that are out there. Like I know there are some listed antifreeze solutions out there now, but still limited as far as temperature ratings and stuff like that. So I'm up here in Canada. Essentially, some of the some of the antifreeze solutions that are available aren't. They'll get me to October, November, but they're not going to get me through the winter. So it's another alternative when the inevitable happens and they remove the unlisted antifreeze not requirement, but allowance is the dry pipe well.
Yeah, and I'd say that there's a good chance that a lot of those antifreeze systems were installed not because people didn't want to necessarily install dry valves. It's just back in the day when your option was to install a 4-inch dry valve for 15 or 20 sprinklers.
Yep.
It just didn't make sense, and so you just kind of went, well, then we'll just go with the antifreeze. So having that small valve size, even with the listed antifreeze, I think there's some thought that needs to go into simply replacing them now with small dry pipe valve systems and small air compressors, and then we don't worry about whether the system can go to -10 or -40. We know there's nothing in there to freeze.
Yeah, there's no issue if there's no moisture or no water in the pipe. That's another good point there. Is there anything else you want to touch on this valve before we kind of wrap up the?
Well, Chris, I had a question for Carey. Could you maybe speak to trim options and quick opening devices and those sort of things?
Yeah. So again, in that regard, being a straight differential style valve, the addition of an accelerator is going to be just like on the Model D. It's piped a little bit differently, but the operational sequence, if you will, is exactly the same. We're going to take the blast of air, if you want to call it, off the accelerator when it trips. We're going to dump it back into the intermediate chamber. That's going to destroy the 6-to-1 differential and accelerate the opening of that valve. So nothing really much changes there. Still the Model B1 accelerator. Right now, for larger systems, we're not listed with any type of an electronic accelerator, and that's just another piece of the puzzle we got to put together here down the road. But as far as trim goes and options, it does come with the pressure switches preset for 40 psi and the good old PS10s on the alarm side. And yeah, I think at the end of the day when you see it, it's just going to be kind of like, hey, it's leaner, it's red, it's not black, and just kind of the modern day Model D, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, it's a clean looking valve. It looks really clean. It looks neat. It looks tidy, and it's an interesting valve. I'd be curious to finally get one put in the field.
There you go.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for the overview of the new FX dry pipe valve. John, you wanted to talk a little bit about the 100th year anniversary. This is Reliable Sprinklers' 100th year, and here's the reason I like Reliable. It's completely family owned and operated. Why don't you touch a little bit about that?
Sure. It's and the story actually goes back to 1889 when a 17-year-old Frank Fee got off the boat on Ellis Island, and I mean it's just the Reliable story is an amazing story. That this young man within 31 years had founded this sprinkler manufacturing company that here we are 100 years later, just marveling at this guy's grit and determination. So we're now in the third and fourth generation of the Fee family. And still it's an amazing atmosphere here that you really do feel part of a broader family, and the same values that founded this company are still very much in evidence today.
Right. How do you mean? The care for the employees, when I made my move here, the first and foremost, everybody wanted to make sure, everything okay? Are you getting settled in? Is your family doing well? It's just very, very nurturing environment. Very focused on customers that and again that's what launched Frank Fee the first into this business. And that same focus is here today. And it's as a privately held company, we definitely are able to do some things, with our customer relationships that some of our other competitors are, unwilling or unable to do. So you guys have something coming up here soon. We were talking about possibly getting the podcast involved with it. What is it that what the plan is here? We kind of went over a couple things here. We were supposed to get together. Actually, I think it was supposed to be like last week. We were supposed to meet up. I was supposed to come to New York. We're going to push it back until May. What's the general plan for that trip?
Well, I don't really want to tip my hand as far as what's coming up, but we did want to extend you an invitation to come down to Liberty the next time that we have Kevin Fee and Frank III down here, and would love for you to get the Reliable story firsthand from the generation 3 and 4 Fees. Yeah,
absolutely. That sounds like a good idea. We're looking at possibly May for that, but we'll see what kind of comes up across the guidelines. Guys, thanks for coming on the podcast and talking about the new Reliable FX dry pipe valve. Not replacing immediately, but kind of taking over for the Model D. A lot of good information on that. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Chris, and hey, appreciate everything you're doing for the industry.
No, I wouldn't be able
Chris,
to
thanks for having us.
You guys, I can't talk to myself about Sprinkler. I need people to talk to. So really, I'm just an avenue for you guys to talk about the products and the things that you guys are doing in the industry. So I appreciate the support that everything Reliable has done for me, as well as all the people who have come on the podcast. And thanks for all your support.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Have a nice weekend.
You as well. Hey everyone, this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is done. If you liked this episode, leave a review, comment, or hop over to my social media pages and let me know. Just search Fire Sprinkler Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't forget to hashtag Fire Sprinkler Podcast and anything you think I should know about or see. If you have any suggestions for future episodes of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast, Email info@firesprinklerpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care.